Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news on church stories. I am Unyi Opala. Let's begin. The Southern Cameroon struggle is a tale of misrepresentation rooted in a complex web of historical and legal facts. For years, the discourse surrounding this nation has been shrouded in misleading narratives labeling its leaders as separatists who seek to break away from Cameroon. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that Southern Cameroon is a distinct entity, recognized under international law, fighting for its rights and sovereignty within its own land. To understand the crux of the issue, it's essential to delve into the nation's history. Southern Cameroon was a British Trust territory, separate from French Cameroon under and until 1961, when it voted to form a federation with La République de Cameroon. However, this federation was unilaterally dissolved in 1972 by President Amadou Ahidjo, violating international and national status. The final nail in the coffin was President Paul Biya's 1984 decision to reinstate the name La République du Cameroun, effectively nullifying any pretense of legal unity between the two territories. Today, the people of Southern Cameroon are fighting for the restoration of their statehood, not secession. They argue that there exists no binding treaty or agreement linking them to La République du Cameroun, and that Biya's regime has no legal basis for deploying military forces in the nation of Southern Cameroon. As the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights implied in 2009, Southern Cameroon stands on its own as a distinct entity, deserving of recognition and respect. This introduction was highly significant today as we delve into some of the reports. But first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll first of all take a look at the 5 months in captivity. The senior divisional officer for Idabato, abandoned by La République du Cameroun, he finally got his freedom. Also tonight, tragic military raid in Ndop has sparked outrage and demands for accountability is high. Also tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at the incident after the Monday ghost town. Tonight, we take a look at the Southern Cameroon's misrepresentation of the struggle for independence. Also, civil society groups said strike on markets in North Mali kills 18 that is on the African scene, while North Korea vows to threaten nuclear capabilities, defying G7's call to abandon program. Well, now let's get into the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Tragedy struck in Biya on the evening of Monday, March 17, 2025, when 2 taxi drivers were attacked and neutralized at Bamako. The Amazonian State Army, well, is being suspected to be behind the attack. But what's particularly concerning is that the attack occurred on a Monday, a day when all commercial activities are prohibited in the southern Cameroons. Well, it's worth noting that include, in quotes, separatist movements, including the Amazonian movements, have been known to enforce ghost towns and prohibit commercial activities as a means of protest. However, this does not in any way justify the use of violence against civilians, as the ASA is really not in that state of causing violence. So the incident has raised concerns about the ongoing war in Amazonia and the impact it has on the people. The attack on the taxi drivers is a reminder of the dangers and uncertainties faced by people living in the area. So the report has it in full that in Bomaka Boya, a tragic incident occurred where two commercial taxi drivers were shot dead in Bomaka. The victims, identified as Kudi, a resident of Muya, and Jude, a father of five, were fatally shot in a crossfire by unidentified gunmen. Well, eyewitnesses report that the gunmen believed could be Amazonian State Army opened fire on the two drivers as they went about their normal activities. So the motive behind the attack remains unclear, but onlookers suspect that the drivers may have been ticketed for not respecting the Monday ghost towns imposed by the Amazonian government. And so, for all we know, Monday Ghost Town is a civil disobedience movement that originated in Amazonia because they do not want to respect La Republic de Cameroon laws on that particular day. So the movement began in 2016 as a response to the marginalization, the oppression of the Amazonian minority. Of course, you know that. The name Monday Goes Down refers to the practice of shutting down businesses, schools, and other commercial activities every Monday to protest the La Republic de Cameroon's government's action. The purpose was to disrupt the economic and draw attention to the Amazonian fight. And so the war in Amazonia continues till this day, where Monday Goes Down remaining a symbol of resistance against La Republic de Cameroon's government oppression. Barrister Mbeseha, our in-house analyst, is here on tonight's Undaunted. And for all we know that there are punishments that are given to people who are found prohibiting the Monday ghost towns and all of that. Those who are violating the Monday ghost town, we know that there are punishments. We do not know for certain that the ASA, who are there to protect the people, would kill her own people. The ASA do not kill Amazonians, for all we know. But then onlookers say they feel that this could be based on the fact that the incident happened on a day that they were supposed to observe a sit-at-home kind of attitude. Barrister Mbeseha, this is a report coming out from the Monday Ghost Town. What would your thought be on this?
Well, my thoughts is that at least for the past 5, 6, 7 years, Monday Ghost Town has become the law of the land. And whoever decided it, if a law has become the law, the government of Southern Cameroon respects Monday Ghost Towns. They don't exist in Amazonia. So if you're a taxi driver, and you thought that the best thing for you to violate was to go drive, violate it, and a few pennies that day, you're taking a risk. Nobody has claimed responsibility for the shooting or for the killing, but the risks are high. The best thing we know is that there's no prison will send people to. They will catch you for violating the Monday Ghost Town and send you there. We don't have that prison. We don't have that much with disobedience. And so whoever takes upon himself or herself to violate it does it at his or her own risk. The penalties might be many, justice, it could be anything. We're not answering for anything. And so, guys, what happened in Buya, if it is true, it's just a pointer, a warning to few violators of the Monday Ghost Towns. Because we're dealing with civil disobedience. We don't have a police guy to catch you. We don't have gendarmes up the wall. And so just enforce that thing. Anybody could enforce it. Anybody his house, it goes down, sees you marketing around trying to get money, could take vengeance on you. It's civil disobedience. We require civil enforcement of that order. What you can say is that if these guys did not know the danger, now they are gone. The future people, in future, people should learn to respect that thing. Again, Ambazonian government does not have the people to go around and police the towns to enforce that thing. Because the civil disobedience, the civilians enforce it in any form or shape and take the risk. If you take the risk, you take that. And so, in Biya, should be warning to any other person in any other town in Ambazonia. Violating the Monday is a big risk, which might include the loss of your life. Over to you.
All right, still about the death of people, we have this report that talks about the raid in Ndop. So, a devastating military raid occurred in Baba one Ndop yesterday, claiming the lives of three individuals, including two civilian brothers, Raymond and Shama, and one Amazonian fighter in quote. Well, the community is still reeling from the shock, vehemently denying reports that two civilians were Amazonian fighters. Well, eyewitnesses and local sources confirmed that the two brothers were innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. So the community is outraged, accusing the military of wrongly labeling the civilians as Amazonian fighters to cover up their mistake. So this allegation has sparked widespread condemnation, with many calling for accountability and an end to the violence. So the incident has raised concerns about the military tactics and the ongoing human rights abuses in Amazonia. The use of excessive force and the targeting of civilians have become all too common, leaving communities in fear and perpetuating a cycle of violence. The people of Baba Ndop are demanding justice for the victims and their families. They are calling for a thorough investigation into the incident, transparency, and accountability for those responsible. The community is also urging the military to respect human rights and to distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. And so here we are saying that the UN is being urged as well to take notice of the situation in Baba One and Ndop and to apply pressure on the government to ensure the human rights are respected and protected. The incident is a reminder of the need for a peaceful resolution to the conflict and for protections of civilians. And if I can go further, what are the key demands? What do Amazonians want here? A thorough and transparent investigation into the incident, accountability for those responsible for the killings, respect for human rights and distinction between military and non-military, and an end to the violence and a peaceful resolution to the war. The incident in Baba Ndop is a wake-up call for the world to take action. Just like we said yesterday, the United Nations, human rights organizations, and governments around the world must condemn the violence and urge the government to respect human rights. The UN here must also support efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the conflict and to protect civilians. Just here in one news page, just two reports, we have counted how many lives gone. Barrister Mbeseha, this is highly sad. In just two reports from tonight, we've counted at least three lives gone. And all of this is geared towards military action, it's geared towards insecurity, it's geared towards, everything that has to do with war that must be recognized globally for the end to come. This is highly sad. And from this report, the people of Ndop were all crying and screaming that at the end of the day, when the military come to invade, they will push all of the burdens and all of the issue down and say, oh, it was the ASA that committed the atrocities. What would you say about this, sir?
What happened in Baba Odopo of Ndop? Yes, and but that's the part today we talked of Pinyin, where the military walked into a bar and shot people to death, killed 3 or 4 of our boys simply for being Amazonians. And so, what else do you expect them to do all the time? Guys there's nothing like crossfire. A crossfire is where there's active fighting between two armies. It's not a crossfire. This is absolute murder. They just go there for who they are. So they kill this man in their belief that they're an amber. In their belief that this man looks young, he's strong enough. He must be one of the people who is fighting for the liberation of Amazonia. And so the name Amazonian, young guy, is equal to death. It's just death. So I don't even believe in all these things we talk here. There's nothing like investigation. Because they have no investigation of their things. You investigate something that you don't know. But something that the facts are clear. Those military guns are giving the gun surely. They are allowed to go and mix with the community, with the people they don't like. So there's no investigation. Asking for excuse. They will never give you an excuse because they didn't make a mistake. So just one too many after Ndop, after Biya yesterday, we were analyzing it, and after Biya, we just talked about, and many other towns. So there's nothing like investigation because we have never had investigation anywhere. Yesterday we talked about Ngarabu. Ngarabu has been there forever. Who investigated Ngarabu? Nobody. Who investigated Mawotu? No. Who investigated Kwakwa? Who investigated Bishamabang? Who investigated Kembang? There's nothing like investigation. Anyway, once you hear the word investigation, if it comes out of the mouth of the person, forget about that. Because he's not going to do it. They're not going to do it. If it comes out of our own mouth, forget about that. We don't have the pressure to force them to do it. And so the word investigation is just for them. The only thing coming out of our mouth, we should be saying all the time, this is pushing. We're not asking you to hold them accountable because they will never hold them accountable because they are their agents. But we all live in the international community where there are superior governments than the government of Cameroon. And others should be held accountable by some superior authority. In this case, the ICC, United Nations, and is relevant. And so, I will come. Not from you. Because even if they came out and said, we did this, they will put the guy. Nobody will ever be punished. We have not seen the person, anybody who killed friends, I have for punishing away. We have not seen people who shot people just in Garabo punished anywhere. These were admitted facts by Yaoundé itself. And so they are not going to do it because they themselves are accomplices to the crime. Because the shooters, in fact, are obeying instructions from their commanders. By the ICC, sooner or later, will come in to hold those people who are giving instructions liable. Because ICC, the commanders, the superior authority and military, those who give these people arms, instruct them to go around hunting for people, young men and women, who call them Amazonians, call them separatists, are criminals. I told them, where is it written that anybody who says he wants to separate deserves? Where is that for even in the criminal code? That if somebody say, well, the Mbeseha man or a man, so I'm separating from Cameroon, you shoot him and kill him. Where is that found in the law? There's no such thing there. So by their own law, by their laws, it's criminal. By international law, war crime is genocide. Because they know, maybe they don't even know his name. All what they know is that he's an Amazonian. It's an Anglophone. Let's kill him. That's because it's an Anglophone. And Anglophones as a bloc are separatists. Anglophones as a Amazonian fighters. And so we cannot let these things go unaccountable. We just pray that as soon as these people will brought the book, this analysis yesterday in depth, war crime, genocide are imprescriptible. War crime generators shall never go unpunished until they themselves die. So it's a question of time about justice. Thank you, not. What do you?
Oh, Barrister Mbeseha, thank you so much. But that's not even all. Remember the Colonial Divisional Officer of Idabato in Indian County, Iwane Roland, has regained freedom after spending more than 5 months in captivity. News of his freedom surfaced on the media platform on the night of Monday, March 17, suggested that he was in the safe company of the Rapid Intervention Battalion forces at their Jaban base in the Bakassi Peninsula. Well, in a turn of events, the Colonial Divisional Officer for Idabato, who was abducted by what they tagged as separatist fighters 5 months ago, has regained his freedom. The officer, whose name has not been disclosed, was abandoned by the Biya's regime and left to his fate. The abduction of the Colonial Divisional Officer was a significant blow to the La Republic of Cameroon government, which has been struggling to maintain control over the Ambazonian states. Well, the region's inability to secure the officer's release has been seen as a sign of weakness and a testament to the growing power of forces outside La Republic de Cameroon. The officer's release has been met with mixed reaction, with some hailing it as a victory for diplomacy and others criticizing La Republic de Cameroon for abandoning one of its own officials. The incident has raised questions about the Biya's regime's commitment to protecting its citizens and officials, particularly in the Ambazonian country. It has also been highlighted the need for a more comprehensive approach to addressing the crisis in Ambazonia. As the situation continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The Colonial Divisional Officer's release is a significant development that will have a far-reaching implications for Ambazonia and, of course, La Republic de Cameroon. The colonial government blamed armed pirates from neighboring Nigeria, but the kidnappers have since 1st of October remained undercover and have not revealed themselves or the intentions behind the kidnap. So their kidnapping remained complex. They were taken by pirates who broke into their residences at Idabato, a maritime community in Indian County. Well, the Colonial Divisional Officer's family reported that the pirates had demanded an exorbitant ransom of 1.9 billion francs CFA a few weeks after the kidnapping. That you will remember. We discussed that here regularly. They reportedly made a series of other demands as well, including the release of some pirates captured and jailed in Cameroon prisons. But whatever, or whether these demands were met before the Colonial Divisional Officer was freed, well, that remains uncertain. But we have seen images that shows that he has finally been reunited with his family. And after 6 months, Barrister Mbeseha, he has finally been released. There were times when reports came out that he was dead. There were times when we saw images that looked like he was dead. He was beaten, tortured. And we followed up this report and we have seen another report that shows that he is free. That is finally he is free. Barrister Mbeseha, you followed up this report with me as well. What would you say at this point?
Yes, almost everybody, including me, this man was dead. But seeing from that picture, it means that he's alive. But the details about it, we knew about the demands from his family. All we knew from the government that a certain Okala Biya went to that place and get 48 hours within which the guy should come back. Hours have passed, months have passed, and the man is finally back. But we must not forget them. The other guy, we don't know. But seen from those pictures that are this, will we say that this man's release is due to some diplomatic action taken? Just from those pictures alone, no. I don't believe that. There's no indication that they got involved in his release. Within months, within weeks or hours, again to formulate stories of what they did. But initial pictures point to the fact that they did nothing to release this man. Look at that man sitting on the bench. If I get the picture, or analyze it to justify what I'm saying. From that picture there, which is the first impression of what we know about his release, see him sitting there, almost in in an underwear, without shoes, nothing, but he's sitting in a government office. You see a walkie-talkie right there. You see a well-furnished office right there. But this man was the personal representative of the government. Is that the way he would appear if he had been diplomatically released? They would have negotiated his release. He would have been taken to court. And if the government was what we call a government in Cameroon, he would propose to give him some clothes to wear. He would appear like a gentleman. But that man there without shoes, in an underwear, looking frail and pale. Those guys, gendarmes, policemen sitting close to him. Well, they're surprised to see him there. They're actually surprised that he's back there. Can you say this is an office? No. They just abandoned him. Just compare this to the manipulators of Regina Mundi. Regina Mundi was a Biya senator who disappeared, who was supposed to have been adopted in the Prado and taken to some village somewhere in Momo. She returned in a helicopter, dressed in tracksuits. A mayor senator appointed by the president. And the narrative was that they released her officially. Dressed, of course, they dressed her well, put her in the plane and brought her there. The Dio, who in principle, by their unofficial meaning, president of Paul Biya. He's a president. He was the president when he was in Idabato. He was the chef d'etat. He spoke and no one else spoke. And he's now released after going through 6 months of pain, of abandonment, and sitting there without clothes. Let me just say bare body. Let me say even just like that. Is that the person they call the personal representative of the president? Certainly not. If he had gone, I don't know why if he had gone straight to his family would have given him a shirt. His family would have say pass him to wear. But he was taken to a government office to find him sitting there. The gendarmes are surprised to see him there. The gendarmes have walkie-talkies there. They could talk to their bosses everywhere in Biya, in Yaoundé. They could have flown him out of that. They didn't do it. So this guy was just released. Thanks to God. Maybe that thanks to the fact that the family paid what they afford. And what do his abductors gain by killing him? The family offered just $1 million, even 500,000. That's better for them than to kill him and throw him in the ocean because they gain nothing from his death. And so we can also say that thank you to the family for relief. And tell other people, first of all, thought this one man was one of us. But it might be he's not one of us, of them. We bear the name one. It is a reminder to that when you are with this territory, you are doing it at your own risk. When life or death comes about, don't worry. Unless you are of them. You will never be one of them. Because there's no way they're going to send a Bulu, a Betty man to Idabato to be with you. They only send the son. It's the family, this person from a poor family, from an unprotected family. That is back. The next thing I will predict you will hear in the next few months is being retired. By force. If he wants to continue the job, he's a risk. He will simply retire. Whatever thing is his pension, 10,000, 20,000 a month. That's all what he has earned. But again, let him pray to the Almighty God that at last his life spared. Let him thank his family for making the effort they made. Because we didn't hear any positive thing from Biya. They say it was diplomatic. They went to Yaoundé. We heard nothing from Yaoundé. That's just all. They went to the concept of Nigeria in Biya. That was all. His matter had been long forgotten. I'm sure some people in Yaoundé, their museum stolen his pension by now. And the great guy is dead. And so that's a poor man. Be he who has been released. Be he an unfortunate the Republic citizen who was sent to that place, the risk is high. Don't and the war will not end until they address the root causes of the problem. If the government had released him, are going to be released, the government should be able to put a statement there and tell us where the other man is. There are two of them. They're all government officials. No statement is made. Nothing is said. They are concocting a story to tell us which story will not sink. But anywhere in Mbeseha, it's a high risk zone. Don't go there. Better save your life. If they send you there, take your retirement and go back home. Take care of your family rather than to come back in a body bag. Over to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. That has always been your stand ever since this incident broke out to the media. Barrister Mbeseha, there is a need for us to re-emphasize on the Southern Cameroon struggle because, for all we know, is being misrepresented in the global discourse. Because, contrary to popular narratives, the leaders of Southern Cameroons are not separatists. Of course, they are not separately seeking to break away from La Republic to Cameroon, but rather they are asserting their rights within their own land, which is recognized under international law. So if we want to go down to history, Southern Cameroon was a distinct political entity under British administration. Now, it was separate from French Cameroon under French administration. Still in history, in 1961, Southern Cameroons voted to form a federation with La Republic de Cameroon, not to be annexed. However, in 1972, President Amadou Ahidjo unilaterally dissolved the federation, and in 1984, President Paul Biya reinstated the name La République du Cameroun, nullifying any pretense of legal unity between the two territories. Now, this means that there exists no binding treaty or agreement that links Southern Cameroon to La Republic de Cameroon. The African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights implied in 2009 that Southern Cameroon stands on its own as a distinct entity. Therefore, Biya's continued military aggression in southern Cameroon is not governance, but an occupation amounting to a war crime under international law. And so the label separatist is a misrepresentation of the leader's position as they are fighting for their rights within their own homeland. So the real question is, what legal basis does La Republic de Cameroon have for deploying military forces to southern Cameroon? The answer is none. Barrister Mbeseha, this was just a shot because wherever it is written, when you talk about Southern Cameroons and its leaders, all that is mentioned is separatists, their leaders separatists, their fighters separatists. And you know what they say? The people tell their own stories by themselves. They retell the stories by themselves. And so it's just a matter of saying this has been a misrepresentation. We do not have so much time to go down to history lane and all of that. But the misrepresentation of calling the leaders of Southern Cameroons separatists is what we are here to talk about tonight. And that was why that little introduction and brief, intro was necessary for this discourse tonight. How often should Southern Cameroons tell their own stories just so that the world or even them themselves would understand that the fight they are not fighting is just from anywhere. It's been down there in history and it's been stated there from time memorial. Right, Mbeseha, over to you. Try not to go into the historical detail. Try because we may not have all the time, but then the stories have to be told over and over and over again so that it can sound like music to some of the people who do not understand.
Yes, British Southern Cameroon was so a separate state from French-speaking Cameroon. Documentation, I've always said, that were a product of the United Nations international community. As of 1919, at the end of the First World War, the two they were never meant to come back together. They were supposed to have independence. Fast forward, 1950, when they wanted to give us play on the 13th of December, 1959. In fact, the United Nations sat. The case of Southern Cameroon, British Southern Cameroon, was on the table. The case of French-speaking Cameroon was on the table. What were they talking about? They were debating on what to do. Their dates for independence, 1959, 18 December, in the General Assembly. And so, on that 13th December, they passed Resolution 49. Resolution, in short, stated that Cameroon will become independent 1st January 1960. That's a year. That's a fact. Then they took the fire of British Southern Cameroon. Next day, and they passed Resolution 1350. Remember 1350, now 1350. They brought up the fire to discuss when to give Southern Cameroon independence. The British, who were the administrators, opposed it and insisted that they should be giving a referendum. Otherwise, on that very day, they would have fixed independence. The British insisted that there should be a plebiscite for them to choose to get independence by joining one or joining the other. In this case, joining Nigeria, that was not yet independence, or joining Cameroon, that is a winner. They were still to have independence 1st of January, a year to go. And so on that basis alone, the very United Nations passed resolution 1350, that's the nation today, freedom, in which they stated that Southern Cameroon should have a plebiscite to determine how to get their owners. And so it is two separate. Otherwise, they would have said that day, 13 December, British Southern Cameroon, that is Cameroon under British administration, and Cameroon under the French, would have all independence on 1st of January. They didn't do that. They gave them the date, you have your own, and they left us alone. And so you will have your own to be determined in the future, the plebiscite, as recommended by the UK, who were the administrators. And so the whole idea that we're ever together, zero. The same day, 13 December, they would have given us independence, all of us, 1st of January. They didn't do it because we were separate. That's why Cameroon got its independence 1st of January, without us being part of it. What happened to us is what has brought this trouble here. As recommended in 1350, Resolution 1350 of 13 December, there will be a plebiscite. Then 8 months into that, they now and agree that, okay, these people have to have a plebiscite. What could you ask them? The question then was debated and agreed at Resolution 1352 that will ask them to get independence either by joining Nigeria or by joining Republic of Cameroon. But before they did that, between December and August, there had been undertakings by Yaoundé, the Yaoundé regime, when Mr. Ajo was the premier. He had agreed that if we decided in the future plebiscite to join them, we were going to be a separate state, and then there would be a union, a federation of two equal states. That's the basis of the resolution 1352 decided us. Will you get independent by joining Nigeria, or you get independent by joining? Had been written down in court as a separate federation of two equal states. And so, what is our struggle about? What is a separate state? A state is a people with stations, a government, its own ministries, its own parliament, its own for a state. You have a government, you have a judiciary, you have the executive, you have the legislature. And this is that will bring to this federation of two equal states. Where are those institutions? Where the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly? That's the legislature, including the House of Chiefs. Where is their government? Where is their judiciary? Where have they gone to? So the Southern Cameroon struggle, what we're fighting today, it's not about offices to their own day. Even if they promoted me or you, the president of Cameroon, that will not solve our problem. Our problem is a reinstitution of our institutions, which were legally abolished, in an attempt to completely assimilate the Anglophones. As admitted by Paul Biya himself, who tried to assimilate these people. Assimilation. Assimilation is absorption. If you mix, if you put water down and put wine there, you cannot separate them. Maybe it takes a different color. We can no longer separate the wine from the water where it mixed of them. That's assimilation. And so they abolished our institutions just 10 years into the revolution. In 1972, they abolished the House of Chiefs. They abolished the government in Biya, the assembly. And so that's why we have been saying that this struggle is about the restoration of Cameroon. The restoration of British Southern Cameroon means the restoration of its institutions. It's not fighting for us to have a prime minister in your own. It's not fighting for us to have certain ministries by Anglophones. No, it is fighting to reinstate these institutions, which Ahijo himself, down the road in 1961 again. In 1960, he put writing that this independent by joining would be a country of a federation of two separate states, two separate but equal states. There's something important there about equal. They put the word equal. The one is of 1961, 1960. We were always a minority. So 1959, we were 100,000. Whereas French-speaking Cameroon were million. In terms of numbers, equal to them. The Africa area, we're not equal to them. But legally, we had to have a status equal in status. You didn't say equal in anything, equal in status. Yes, the Federal Assembly then only had 50 members. British Southern Cameroon, which became West Cameroon, sent in only 10 of the 50. But the 40 could not override us. Because even in that constitution they put there was nothing they could do as a federal thing unless 6 of the 10 people from the Southern Cameroon voted for it. Even if 4 of them voted for something, and only 5 of us voted, it would not pass. The simple majority, 6 out of 10, it passed. That's what they mean by equal in status. But they have abolished all those things by force, criminally abolished the federation. And so our struggle is based on that. But again, there are elements of the United Nations we don't have time to analyze. Fast forward again, as of 1960, August 1960, December 1960, they passed Resolution 1541, which stated, among other things, how people are independent by joining. What it meant by joining, it is definition the rules. Because some people were bigger than others. What did it mean? It meant that it's written in black and white. And it even gave the option that after remaining in that union for some time, it could opt out. If you didn't want, you are free to opt out. That's written there in the resolution 1541. And so that's what we're fighting about. If somebody tells something called one indivisible, I've already addressed one indivisible many times here. It's a lie. If somebody will vote and they go independent to become part of that Republic of Cameroon, it's a lie. We agree there. What was the reason for even joining? Which was a faulty reason, but the only reason was that they are into a lie. That were not financially viable. That was the main reason. It was not the size. Because as of 1959, our population of British Africa was bigger than many countries, and they were bigger than Equatorial Guinea, were bigger than Israel. And so it was not the physical size. No, the only reason the British, which was a faulty reason, was that we were not financially viable. And if we remain there, according to the resolution 51, down the road, we started having the money we have now because we are the ones sustaining them. We walk out. We were free to walk out by resolution 1541. So we could walk out without a fight. And so, again, we've always said, let all the legal experts show us any law. International law that says that once people get into a union, they cannot opt out. It doesn't exist anywhere. It's speculative. But again, written in black and white, 1541, states, among other things, that in this, if you join, if the two come together, institutions you want, and you have the free out of the union, it should not have been any war at all, especially in case, because the union was something voluntary by the people. They vote plebiscite to join together. They could vote to get out. They could opt to go out of it. And so again,
we do not have all of the time. I wanted us to focus on how consciously Ambazonians can actually tell the story. That was the question I asked, how Ambazonians can consciously tell the story of misrepresentation, of them being tagged as separatists. That was where I wanted us to, focus our discourse on tonight. Focus our discourse on that part, actually.
The only way you can tell, anybody can tell people, tell the story in the shortest form is simply that the Ambazonian struggle is not about posts of officially. It is about restoring its own institutions. It's just about restoration. That's all. And if somebody, where are the institutions? When we came in there in 1961, there was a government in Biya. You have a prime minister. Where's the prime minister of West Cameroon? Where are they? Why an assembly in Biya? Where are these things? So the fight is not about separation because we had our own in Biya. Yaoundé. That's the ongoing Yaoundé. That's the prime minister there. And so it's not about separation. It's about restoration. Because you don't separate from where you did not belong. We had never belonged together since 1919. All the stories of the African 1970, no, the 2009 African Union declaring us a people is documented even before that in the charter. We're a people, and every people has a right to self-determination. It's written in this resolution I've mentioned. And so the struggle, to make a long story short, the struggle is not about separation. The struggle is about restoration. The restoration of what? The restoration of our institutions. If they don't agree, let them show where the institutions are gone to. Where's Funcha? Where's the man who represented, who died, who represented Funcha, who succeeded Funcha, who negotiated with the huge terms? Where are they? They're no longer there. Not because they died, but because the offices were abolished. And so, a short story is, what we are fighting there is not about separation. That's fraudulent misinterpretation of international law. Because again, we are under international law. We get to this not by private negotiation now. We don't So I wonder if that answers your question.
Obviously, yes, because at the end of the day, I would consciously time and over again try to bring up all of this discussion, even during the week, so that people can hear it often, people can understand, and people can actually know what the Amazonian government is on and what they are doing. I mean, it's not nice when you go to the news and you begin to see the people who are fighting for their right to statehood and all of that being referred to as separatists. But this is where we'll actually, draw the curtains on, from the news from the home front for today. We'll draw the curtains here, and hopefully when we
Uh,
come back next time we'll have
before I
more.
go, before I go, let me add this.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I think, or Thursday, there'll be a program under the historian who will address really what was meant and what independence. So people should follow that program tomorrow. It's similar to what we're doing now. We take the opportunity, a detailed explanation legally, what is meant by what was meant and what it is supposed to be independent by joining. That will help us understand why we're fighting. That the independent by joining turned out not to be independent by joining. It turned out to be independent by assumption. So that program tomorrow, I will address it more detailedly. Thank you and for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for also coming on tonight's Undaunted. Coming up next is news across Africa. An army airstrike at a market in Mali's northern Timbuktu region on Sunday killed at least 18 people and injured seven. A local rights group said, while the army said it was targeting terrorists. The Collective for the Defense of the Rights of the Azawad People, which is linked to separatist Tuareg rebels, said Malian armed forces bombed a weekly market 50 kilometers, that's 30 miles north of the city, to Luneb. Meanwhile, Mali's army said on Monday it had launched airstrikes against what it called terrorist activity in the same area set up by the rights group. It said in a statement on X that the strikes has neutralized at least 11 terrorists. North Mali is rife with militant activity linked to Al Qaeda and Islamic State. The Tuaregs, an ethnic group who inhabits the Sahara region, including northern Mali, are fighting for an independent homeland. They launched an insurgency against Mali's government in 2012. But the rebellion was later hijacked by Islamist groups, setting off a violent insurgency that has since spread across West Africa's Sahel region and beyond. In July last year, Tuareg rebels attacked a convoy of Malian soldiers and mercenaries of Russia's Wagner Group in the far north of the country. Well, not just the far north of the country, but also near the town of Tinzwaten, close to the border with Algeria. Dozens of Russians and Malian soldiers were killed in the attack. The rebels said it is not uncommon for Mali, which has been under military rule since a 2020 coup, to carry out airstrikes on insurgent targets in the north of the country. At least 21 people, including 11 children, were killed by drone strikes in Tunzwatem in August. Tuareg rebel had said in October a drone strike at a fair in Timbuktu region killed at least 8 people, including children. But coming up next is news across the globe. North Korea has made it clear that it's committed to advancing its nuclear program despite the G7's urging to abandon its nuclear ambition. The country's foreign ministry stated that its nuclear capabilities will be steadily updated and strengthened and will exist forever as a means of defending its sovereignty and interests. This stance is consistent with North Korea's history of pursuing nuclear development despite international pressure and sanctions. The country has been working on its nuclear program since the 1950s and has conducted several nuclear tests, including one in 2006 and another in 2009. The international community has been trying to negotiate with North Korea to abandon its nuclear program, but so far, these efforts have been unsuccessful. The six-party talks, which includes North Korea, South Korea, China, Japan, Russia, and the United States, stalled in 2008, and despite some attempt to revive them, the negotiations have not led to a breakthrough. North Korea's commitment to its nuclear program has significant implications for regional and global security. The country's nuclear capabilities pose a threat to its neighbors, including South Korea and Japan, and could potentially destabilize the entire nation. Meanwhile, the U.S. defies court order to deport hundreds of Venezuelans to notorious El Salvador mega prison. The U.S. government's deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans to El Salvador has sparked controversy, especially given the country's history of human rights abuses and harsh treatments of deportees. The planes reportedly carrying alleged gang members were headed to a mega prison in El Salvador despite a judge's order to return the plane. This incident raises concern about the fate of deportees in El Salvador, where they may face imprisonment, not just imprisonment, but torture and other human rights abuses. Many deportees have resulted and reported being detained and imprisoned without due process, with some facing accusations of gang affiliation without evidence. The situation is further complicated by El Salvador's state of exemption, a crackdown on gang violence that has led to widespread detention and human rights abuses. The U.S. government's decision to deport Venezuelans to El Salvador, despite these concerns, has been criticized by human rights groups and advocates. Well, we'll have to see how all of this plays out in the coming days. But this is where we draw the curtains on tonight on Undaunted, bringing into the news on church stories. Well, before we go, let's take a look at the major stories. Well, tonight on Undaunted, we brought you the report of the Colonial Divisional Officer for Idabato, who has finally regained his freedom. We took a walk to Baba Ndop, where tragic military raided and 2 were killed. Also tonight, we told you that there has been a misrepresentation of the Southern Cameroon struggle of independence. On the African scene, we told you that civil society groups said strike on markets in North Mali has killed 18, while North Korea vows to strengthen nuclear capabilities, defying G7's call to action program. That's it for tonight on Undaunted. Bringing into the news on show stories. On behalf of Barrister Team Mbeseha and a team of technicians, it's good night and God bless.